where thousands of people around the world gather daily to watch the interviews and talks organized by MindaliaTV.com. In this occasion, we have KimONeill with us. She is a personal empowerment and interview confidence coach, host for the Every Day is a New Day show, an inspirational show about moving forward and choosing to embrace a positive outlook. Kim is also a best-selling co-author of Positive-Minded People. Her special skill is supporting others in making sense of the chaos in their head so they can stand more confidently in their power. KimONeill will bring to us today a talk called Standing Confidently in Your Power, regardless of the chaos around you. But right before we start, let me please remind you that if you would like to help the world through Mindalia, there's a couple of things that you can do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mindalia TV, give us a like on this video, or leave us a positive comment below your screen. Please note that by doing that, you help Mindalia to reach even more people who could benefit from our information around the world. To allow your live interaction, please remember there's a chat on the side of your screen where you can ask questions to our guest today, who will answer them by the end of her lecture. Without further delay, please let me welcome Kim. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Paula. Thank you for inviting me to be on the show today.
It's our pleasure to have you today. Please, the screen is yours.
Wonderful. Well, I'm just going to start off by saying I am super excited to be here today. So thank you to Mindalia TV and all those who are here today to listen and learn and to participate in today's conversation. So yes, I'm going to be talking about how to stand confidently in your power, regardless of the chaos around you. And when I initially put this presentation together, I did initially gear it towards people who identify as empaths. But the tips and tools that I'm going to share with you really are useful for any and all people. And if the term empath is new to you, don't worry, I will share a little bit more about that. But before I get into the meat of this presentation today, I just want to assure you that you are in the right place if you feel like other people at, say, maybe your work, maybe people in your family, maybe there's a group that you take part in, maybe you feel like these people around you don't understand you and you don't quite know why or what's off. This presentation is also for you if you don't feel safe enough to be all of who you are, to show all of who you are. Maybe you feel like you have to hide, and therefore it's not as easy for you to then, of course, be confident in who you are, right? Maybe you get anxious or off kilter. Maybe it's hard to think straight. Maybe you get overwhelmed easily when other people maybe are talking really fast around you. Maybe they're demanding. Maybe you can sense that there are some people who deliberately try to knock you off your game, so to speak. This presentation's for you. And lastly, if you just want to feel more confident, more clear-headed, centered and grounded at work, maybe around type A or overbearing personalities, then this presentation is for you as well. Of course, I guess you can imagine, but I'm just going to go ahead and pull out what the benefits are of this presentation. So the benefits here are to help you feel supported in knowing and embracing more of who you are, and eventually all of who you are, because all of who you are is amazing. And I just really want you to know that. The benefits also are to help increase your confidence, because the more that you do those things I just talked about, you're going to feel more confident. To help you to gain new perspectives and insights into your energy and situations that may be playing out in your life that you didn't know you could improve upon. And then also to give you tools and practices that you can use at any time to further support you in being who you are, regardless of what's going on around you. So I want to start off by sharing with you a quote that I really love. Unfortunately, it's an unknown, the person who said it is unknown, but let's start with this. If you feel as if you don't fit in this world, it's because you're here to create a better one. And I want to start off with that because when there are these things happening in our life and we're constantly being thrown off and not really knowing what's going on around us, you can start to feel out of place and as if you're the odd man out and therefore, maybe there isn't a place here for you. And this presentation is to help show you, no, you absolutely have a place. You are so needed and wanted, and I'm here to support you in knowing that for yourself and being able to flip the switch on how you might have been feeling up to maybe today's presentation. So why am I talking about this subject? Who am I and what am I talking about, right? So as Paola already said, I am a personal empowerment and interview confidence coach, and I help people make sense of the chaos in their head so they can stand more confidently in their power. But as I've been on this journey to serving in that capacity as a coach, I wasn't always a coach, right? So back in 2014, I was in the process of honing my coaching skills and learning more about myself and my energy. And so I had started off in a very practical direction with my coach training and the tools that I was embracing. And then I kind of shifted into more of that spiritual, metaphysical space. And right at that time that I shifted into the metaphysical space, which for me also had a lot to do with understanding my emotions and how my energy, how I was showing up in the world and how other energies around me were impacting me. Right at that critical time, I had also just started a new day job as a full-time crime analyst at a police department. So now for all those who may be thinking, oh, CSI or that person who's, out in the field collecting blood samples or dusting off bones or something. No, that was not what I was doing. Okay. I was the person who was in the office for 10 plus hours reading crime report after crime report and doing tons of research on the internet and through various databases. And really, it's like putting a puzzle piece together. So really immersing myself in all this information, which, as you can imagine, very low vibration information, because people don't call police officers when they're having the best day of their life, right? They call police officers typically when they're having one of the worst days of their life. So being in a constant state of immersing myself in this just not so pleasant, not so positive information and these situations that were going on, right at the same time I'm trying to open up and embrace my emotions and be open to more positivity and things like that. Can you see the challenge that I was presented with? It was really, it caught me off guard when I saw that this was taking place in my life. So of course, the first thing I wanted to do was just say, that's it. I'm going to, close myself off. I'm going to allow myself to have a wall when I'm at work. And then when I'm not at work, then I can open myself up and continue to do my own work. Well, that only lasted so long, because the more you do that, you're really just creating more. You're creating more imbalance. I was creating more imbalance. I was creating more of a tense energy within my own life, because it's not always so easy to go back and forth between being closed off and being open and closed off and being open. So I hope this is painting the picture for you. I finally got to the place where I said, okay, fine. I really do my best to learn from situations in my life. So I said, okay, fine. Here I am. I've got these two contrasting situations. It sounds like a good time to start using my tools, using what I'm learning about energy and protecting my energy. So I decided to start practicing, how can I be more of who I am, feel as confident and as whole as possible while I'm at work, having to do my job and taking in information. How can I marry these two situations and not totally throw myself off? So I practiced it for quite a long while and finally got to the place where I felt more balanced. And so that is really that's my personal journey of how I started to use what I'm going to share with you today. And then, of course, other tools and information I'm bringing to you today as well to really enhance this conversation. So, okay, so the things that I learned were, again, about connecting to my emotions, learning about my energy, opening myself up to receive. And so let's get back to, what is an empath? So for those who are brand new to this term, it's essentially, empaths are people who tend to take on the energies of other people and or situations around them. And so for some people that may seem like, what? How do you do that? Or, why do you do that? It may sound like a weakness. And for those who experience it, I know many of them tend to feel like it is a weakness. However, I encourage you to open up to seeing how it can actually be a strength. And today's information is going to support you in being able to see how it's a strength and to feel more confident in working with this part of who you are. So a book I'm going to reference here and there throughout today's talk is Dr. Judith Orloff's The Empath Survival Guide. So, and no, I'm not getting any referrals or anything for this, but I want to share this to you because this is a tool you may find useful. So Dr. Judith Orloff's The Empath Survival Guide, Life Strategies for Sensitive People. So Judith Orloff talks about empaths have extremely reactive neurological systems. She says that they don't have the same filters that other people do to block out stimulation. And as a result, we absorb into our own bodies both the positive and stressful energies around us. She calls empaths super responders and says that about 20% of the population are empaths. So if you're familiar with this term and you said, oh yes, this is me, I'm an empath and let's talk about this. I know when I first started learning more about this, I said 20%, wow, that's actually way more than I realized. However, the flip side of that, what does that mean? It means 80% of the population are not empaths, not as aware of their energy, of what they're putting out, what they may be taking in, how things are impacting them. And they might just start to take it all for granted and think that what is what is, not understanding that we actually can learn to work with our energy. So one of the other things that I really love that Dr. Judith Orloff shares with us, and again, just a reminder, this is not all about her, but some great information in there. So I got to share it. I got to share it with you. She has been able to classify that 20% of the population in 4 different categories or strengths, levels of sensitivities of being an empath. So the different categories are on the lower end of that spectrum, partial empath. Then you move up to moderate empath, then strong empath, and last but not least, full-blown empath. Now, I just want to put it out there right now. None of these are better than another or anything of that sort, but it can help you to understand maybe why you are maybe so impacted by certain energies and not as much with others. Or maybe you are an empath in certain areas of life, but not others. And so this can start to help explain that for you. With that said, as I've learned more about myself, just so you know, I fall in the range of moderate to strong. So I'm not a full-blown empath. Even so, I've certainly learned how this information has impacted me and how I can support others in understanding themselves better. So that's where I fall in this. And I want to just encourage you to know that, if you identify with this, you may have been called overly sensitive before, as if that's a bad thing. You are not overly sensitive. One of the quotes from Judith's book is, "You have a gift that simply asks you to learn how to manage it." So you have a gift that simply asks you to learn how to manage it. So I'm going to share with you 3 main keys for being able to stand confidently in your power, regardless of what's going on around you. And then within each of those, I'm going to give you tips and tools that you can practice both today during this presentation as well as outside of here. So number 1 is to know who you are. Gosh, that sounds so simple, doesn't it? Know who you are. Okay, so let me ask you right now. Ask yourself, who am I? Who are you? What comes to mind when you ponder that question? Is it some role you might play in life? Mom, dad, cousin, uncle, cashier, you're a boss, you're a secretary. Is it maybe a job title? I just gave you some examples of that. Because here's the thing, you are more than any of those. Who you are at the core is something much greater than that. And only you are really going to be able to dig deep and to know who that is for you. It can be easy to forget who we are when we are taking on other people's energies. And so that's why this is really key, to be aware of who you are. It can be easy to, again, overly identify with these titles and labels in life. You are more than that. When you know who you are, then that can actually support you in being a better whatever role or title you give yourself. However, if you don't know who you are, then you might start to find yourself in roles and titles that really don't quite fit you, that don't support you in being all of who you are. So it comes down to being in alignment with who you are and that energy. So one simple way to start to get in touch with who you are is come up with what are 5 of your key strengths. So Paola mentioned that I'm also an interview coach. And so this is always something I encourage all my clients to really get clear on, what are some of your strengths? When we are someone that starts to take on energy of other people, and maybe when we're sensitive to other things going on around us, we can start to not know what's a strength, or we can even start to feel like it's not okay to own and embrace all of who you are. But the more you embrace who you are, the more you're actually going to be able to serve and support others and who they are. So it's really important for you to know who you are. So start with something simple. 5 key strengths that you have. And if you are watching this live or on the replay, I invite you to please go ahead and type in the comments below, what are 5 of your key strengths? Allow me and those who are also here with you today to really support you and witness you in embracing that. Okay, so if this is the first time you're doing something like this, then I'm giving you permission to own some of who you are right now. Okay, so let's move on to some more tips for knowing who you are. Okay, so let's say you're having a conversation with someone and maybe they're talking a mile a minute, they're overwhelming you, maybe there's just something that's throwing you off. Maybe they've just got this intense energy and you start to feel overwhelmed and you can't think straight anymore. While that's going on, so I'm going to give you a few tips here, okay? While that's going on, start to just within your head silently, you don't need to say this out loud, start to say, okay, what separates me from this person? And this is just to start to separate your energy from them. So there's no judgment about this, but just start to point out for yourself what's different about you and them. Okay, I'm a woman and that is a man. Okay, that person for some reason is yelling right now. But I prefer not to yell. I don't like to yell. Okay. Let's see. So I thought we were going to have a conversation about such and such topic. Oh, but this person seems to be talking about whatever topic they're talking about. As you start to do this in your head, you can start to, again, separate your energy from them and start to connect back to who you are and clarity of thought. Another thing is to ask yourself if you, again, are feeling thrown off by someone else's energy or just by anything, because this doesn't necessarily have to be someone else's right there by you. You can be walking through the middle of a store and all of a sudden be thrown off by an energy maybe you walked into. Maybe someone else was in that store and was incredibly sad or incredibly angry. And that energy was so strong, it's still there. And you just walked through it and took it on. You may be wondering, wait a second, why am I feeling so angry all of a sudden? And yes, this really happens. So for anybody who's wondering, what am I talking about? Yeah, this kind of thing happens. So you want to stop and ask yourself, okay, wait a second, I'm not sure what's going on here. Who does this belong to? Ask the question, literally ask the question. I've sometimes thought that I was asking by just saying it in my head. And then I realized when I actually verbalized it out loud, then I got the answer. And things started to shift and it was easier for me to release that energy. So simply asking that question, who does this belong to, can really be of service to you. Another really great one, super simple, is taking slow, deep breaths. As you take slow, deep breaths, that's going to support you in clearing any negativity or lower vibrations that you may have just picked up. So again, let's go back to the scenario where maybe you're talking to a person and things are throwing you off. While they're talking, you can just slowly take a slow, deep breath. And I know I had my mouth open while I exhaled. You don't need to do that. Do it to the degree that works for you in that moment. But that is something you can do while you are in that moment. Okay, so I hope that's been helpful for you. That is all part of key number 1, which is knowing who you are. So let's move on to number two. Number two. So it's not enough to just know who you are, but that's amazing. That's really your foundation there. Number two is to now embrace who you are. Because maybe you were like, well, Kim, I do know who I am, right? You know who you are, but are you really embracing who you are? It's not enough to just learn math. We got to do something with it, right? It's not enough to just learn how to tell time. You got to actually use it. Stop asking other people for time. Look at your own watch. Okay, so step two is actually to embrace who you are. So here's a wonderful quote that Dr. Judith Orloff, I'm just laughing at myself. Here's a quote that Dr. Judith Orloff also gives. We are in the midst of an evolution of human consciousness, and empaths are the path forgers. Now, I absolutely love that quote. So I'm going to say it again because there's a lot within that. So we're in the midst of an evolution of human consciousness, and empaths are the path forgers. Okay, so now with that said, path forgers, what does that mean? Let's get a visual here. If you are a path forger, now, and here's the thing too, you don't need to put this on yourself. If this is not resonating for you, you do not need to take on some sort of path forging role. What I have noticed is a lot of heart-centered people, a lot of empaths, we tend to feel very passionate and purpose-driven. I can definitely attest to that myself. And so with that, you may feel like, you have a lot to give. You have something that you really need to create in this world or put forth in this world. You're here to help others. And so maybe you're trying to find your way in doing that. And the way that you're going to be able to be most effective is to be able to know who you are and embrace who you are. Because if you're that path forger, you are on that leading edge, as Abraham Hicks says. You are on that leading edge. You're someone who, to some degree, in some way, is maybe in front. Maybe you are leading some other people, the people that you are here to serve, right? We're not here to serve everybody, but there may be a certain group of people that you uniquely are here to serve. And so if you are that path forger, then that means to some degree, you're going to have to be, taking a chance, right? You're going to have to be courageous. Know who you are and be as confident as you can so that you can be in front there and forge that path for those who are here to serve. So, okay, so let's move into, again, going back to your strengths. So in order to embrace who you are, you know who your strengths are, what your strengths are now. But now let's ask, how do your strengths actually support you in being able to be, embrace who you are and to be that path forger, if you identify with that. That path forger, maybe you're someone who's taking the lead in your family, or maybe it's someone, maybe at work, or maybe it's for some other capacity. So again, mold this to how it pertains to you specifically, okay? So ask yourself, how do your strengths actually help you in what you are here to do? And on the flip side, I ask you to ask yourself, how do your weaknesses maybe also help you? So again, going back to being an empath, someone who's maybe heart-centered, has a big heart and wants to support and help others. What I've noticed, and maybe you have too, is that people who tend to fall in those categories may find it hard to ask for help. And so you may think that that's a weakness. But let me just give you another perspective on this. Those areas where maybe they aren't your strengths, may be a weakness for a reason, because it provides you the opportunity to ask for help and connect with others so that they can be in support of you and vice versa. So maybe as you ask that question, you find out how that also supports you in being able to embrace yourself. And when we don't embrace ourselves, embrace who we are, we may experience a level of self-loathing. We may try to continue to deny who we are. Notice that we're constantly fighting an uphill battle in life, that life doesn't feel easier than it has been. And you may find that you get caught up in your head and feel disconnected from yourself and others. Well, here's the cool thing. the more that you embrace who you are, the more present you are fully in your body, you are going to actually be able to help ward off unwanted energies. So it's just more reason for you to embrace who you are, connecting to yourself and who you are. So in the next step, I'm going to actually talk about grounding, but it's also relevant here. As you are grounding, you are connecting to the way I do it. You connect more to your higher self as well as the earth here to support you. And that supports you in being fully present in your physical body, because you're more than just your physical body. Okay, so some tips to help you embrace who you are. And again, really simple thing. I love this one though. Put one hand on your heart and one hand on your abdomen. And you can even take slow, deep breaths as you do this. This is going to help you to remember that you aren't some consciousness that is maybe gotten sort of escaped your physical body. You are connected to this physical body. And this just brings you back to this present moment, feeling your energy inside your physical body, knowing that your physical body is here to support you, who you are and who you're here to be and all of that. So that is number one. Okay, so then here's a little reverse psychology, because again, we can sometimes just be so resistant to asking for support, embracing who we are. So here's a little game you can play with yourself. Do the flip side. Start to embrace and allow others for who they are. This can have the reverse effect on you. As we start to embrace and accept others for who they are, and that may not always be something that we like, right? But who do we really have control over? We only ever have control over ourselves. So if we can start to get to that place where we can accept others for who they are and how they choose to show up in the world, whether that be consciously or not, we can start to get to a place of more ease. And as we find more ease with them, we can start to be more forgiving and accepting of ourselves and embrace more of who we are. And number 3, this last one, I was like questioning, should I share this today or not? I'm going to go ahead and share it. Remind yourself that you are not your thoughts, your limited thinking, your negative beliefs and thoughts. However, energy expands, right? So the longer we think any thought or feel any emotion, it can start to feel more and more like we have become those thoughts or those energies, because we're simply perpetuating something that was there and building upon it. So if you can get yourself back to the place of remembering that whatever thoughts you may have just started to absorb or embrace or take in, if that doesn't feel good to you, because your emotions are your guidance, then you can go, okay, is this true for me? No, it's not. I don't like this. This is not, no. So I can start to release that, start to shift away from that. And again, this is a short presentation. So this is something that could certainly be expanded on more later. But I share that as a reminder in support of you, knowing that you are not everything you take on. So if you can allow that to go, you're going to find more ease and flow with embracing the truth of who you are, what your truth is. Okay, moving into key number 3. Key number 3, be who you are. So we started off with knowing who you are, but then that's not enough. We then got to take it the next step and embrace who you are. The more and more you embrace who you are and start to make this a regular practice for yourself, start to find that ease and rhythm and flow, it's going to be a lot easier for you to just naturally be who you are. It starts to just become part of your natural rhythm. And of course, as that takes place, then you do find more confidence in being who you are. So now, does being who you are mean you need to run through the hallways of your workplace or your next family function or Target or wherever you go out in the world and say, I'm an empath or, I am a passionate, purpose-driven person? No, no, that's not what that means. knowing who you are, embracing and being who you are is something that you own within you. And it becomes something that you start to confidently exude, which may sometimes show up through your words. It may simply show up through your energy and how other people maybe experience you as you, as you show up in the world. So I think I've expanded on that part. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple more quotes that I really love here. There is an online marketer brand strategist named Jennifer Kim who uses this quote, and I love it. Separation causes pain. That's the quote. Separation causes pain. So again, going back to knowing that you are most protected when you are fully present in your body, embracing who you are beyond this physical body. That means that when you're not, you can be in a state of pain. Now, I don't necessarily mean physical pain, but it might start to show up that way for you. It could just mean a state of mental anguish, of turmoil. The longer that I was in my crime analyst job, and let me just say, I just have to say this, that I learned and gained so much from working there. So no way, shape, or form am I saying, oh, that was awful and they were bad. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I knew the truth of me was someone that really wanted to be somewhere else, to do other things. So for me to continue to put myself in that role as a crime analyst, which was really cool. It just created also a lot of angst for me, a lot of anxiety, a lot of friction within myself. So in that way, I was experiencing emotional pain because I was separating from who I truly am while I was there. Even though I got better, I got real better. That doesn't sound right. I got a lot better. I got a lot better at being confidently who I am and embracing that. It got to a point where it's like, okay, it's time to take it to the next level for myself. So that's what I mean by that. Separation causes pain. Okay, another quote, again, Dr. Judith Orloff. She says, it's too painful to deny your own sensitivities to make other people comfortable. Hello, right? It's too painful to deny your own sensitivities to make other people comfortable. So to what extent are you willing to deny who you truly are? That your sensitivities are a part of you. That it's okay for other people to be more comfortable than you. No, you are here for a reason. The more that you embrace your sensitivities and are able to shift how they actually serve you in being able to be aware of the energies around you, and being able to, of course, understand other people and what's going on. Oh, look, something's going on over there. Can I serve? Can I serve in supporting them in some way and connecting with them? Or, oh, something's going on over here. You know what? That's my red flag to stay away from something, to be in service to you. So I started to go in a different direction with that, but I hope you can see how those things link together and how this can be a strength in supporting you and being that path forger, if that's a role that you really feel is true for you. Okay, so my tips about being who you are, and this is just so important, so key. These are actually daily tips. And you've probably heard this before, but let's talk about it. So number one, shielding your energy, protecting your energy. So it's talked about in two different ways, shielding or protecting. So, and I'm going to get to the next one too, and then I'll bring them together. So then the second one is grounding your energy, which I've already started to talk about. Grounding your energy, but also sort of an extension of that is earthing. You may have seen some videos about this. People who've taken their shoes off and they're walking on the grass, earthing, connecting with the earth. Okay, so here's what I like to do in all my meditations, and just for myself and for my clients and things like that. And I encourage you to do as well. Is every day take some time to ground your energy and protect. So what does that look like? Well, grounding your energy can look like, and again, I do this in the middle of a meditation, but grounding your energy can be sitting down and imagining, there's a variety of ways you can do this. I'm going to use one example. Imagining that you are a tree, and at the base of, say, your root chakra, at the base of your feet, I even add sometimes the base of the chair that I'm sitting on. Envision that like a tree, you have roots, and your energy is extending down into the earth like the roots of a tree, going all the way down, 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 and finally wrapping itself around the core of the earth. And I do this until I actually feel that, until I actually feel that connection of my energy with the energy of the earth. And once you feel that connection, notice how you can start to feel more supported in your physical body. It can be easier to feel centered and grounded. So I use a tree example. Some people use a cord. Some people use like a chain link. I don't know. I don't like that one so much, but use something that feels right for you. So for me, I always use a tree. The next step is then to protect your energy. So again, I do this in the middle of a meditation. So I'm bringing in energy from higher self, grounding it into the earth. And then as I fill myself up with all of me, I then surround my energy, surround your energy with a white light, a bubble, pink loving light. So again, you get to customize this to what feels right for you, but visualize that there's some form of energy around you that is supporting you in maintaining that connection that you just revitalized or just reconnected to. So that as you go about your day, you can start to glide through other energies more comfortably. Now, this is something that, again, I do encourage you to do it every day. And it also takes practice. So say you do it the first day and you notice a little bit of a shift, but then you get thrown off again later. Just like anything, it's a muscle you build. So continue to practice it. Notice the slight shifts that do take place for you. Identify what those are and start to, the more you develop an awareness of what's happening, it's going to be easier for you to shift it, to shift into these modes more quickly. When you start to find yourself around something, oh no, what? This energy is happening? Okay, you know what? Real quick, let's take a deep breath, ground myself, and now you're good. So I hope this is making sense. Okay, and last but not least, let's see, I have just a little bit, but yeah, I'm just about done here. So last but not least, to really be in support of you being who you are, remember how important self-care is. So things like, drinking water, getting enough sleep. That's the one I'm always having to work on. Getting enough sleep, exercise, eating healthy foods, right? And one thing that I really love, again, another awesome Judith Orloff tip, is the importance of protein. She encourages us to eat protein in every meal because that is going to help you remain grounded. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I just want to share with you another perspective of how I see you and really all people, but absolutely, especially empaths and sensitive individuals. You are a bright light that is meant to be seen. And when you are taking on lots of other energies, it can start to you can feel naturally dimmed, or you may even feel like it's your job to dim yourself because other people aren't quite understanding you, or because you feel like you're not as wanted or as accepted because of how other people respond to you or things going on around you. Is this making sense? I hope so. But I want to remind you that you are, it's a gift. It's a gift to have that sensitivity, to be an empath, to be aware of energies going on around you. And I just want to remind you to, the more that you can see it as a gift and understand that it's just about learning how to work with it, then that's a way that you can empower yourself to be in service to who you are and what you're here to do on this earth. And that will also support you in being that path forger and being confident and knowing that before anybody else, and this is one of my quotes actually, before anybody else can be there to support you, it's really key for you to be there for yourself first. And so by knowing who you are, embracing who you are, and being who you are, you can you can be that path forger and shine your light and be as amazing as you are. And other people will start to fall in, fall in line after that. Start to come along as you go. Sorry, I don't know why I'm getting tripped up on my words all of a sudden. So I just want to say thank you for being here today. And it's been my pleasure to present this presentation to you. I hope that it's been useful to you. I am very thankful to Mindalia TV for allowing me to have this opportunity. And if this has been useful to you, I would love to hear your comments, your feedback. And of course, if you know other people who are empaths or maybe just learning to work with their own energies, then please do share with them as well, so that they can also know that they are not alone. And we are here to be in support of each other. So I will leave it at that. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kim. Your very interesting talk. Thank you so much for sharing all this information with everyone here at Mindalia TV today. Before moving on to the questions from our audience, I would like to remind you that Mindalia is a nonprofit organization, and our main goal is to help spread human knowledge and promote planetary solidarity by all means. An important way to collaborate with Mindalia is to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mindalia TV, since by doing so, YouTube shares these videos with more people around the world. Now, it is time to pass on to the audience questions to our very special guest today, Kim. I will read to them, and well, thank you very much again for being with us today.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Okay. So we have our first question here today. It says, how can I embrace my defects?
Well, I would number one start with the languaging of that. So I would encourage you to, whatever you are identifying as a defect, find another word for that, because I don't believe that there is anything innately wrong about anybody, anything innately defective about anybody. Everything about you is in service to you in some form. And I know that sometimes can really take some practice in starting to see what we might think is a defect or something that's wrong or bad about ourselves. But I'm wondering, I would start with the question of, how can you learn? What have you been able to learn from that defect? I'm only using that term because because that's how the question was phrased. But I would start with that languaging first, to start to see that defect as something other than that. And really that's then how you would also then, you would switch it up. So I hope that answers the question.
Of course. Thank you. Let's continue. Another question from our audience. It says, I am 100% empath. How can I cope with a very hostile work environment?
So definitely. So first off, so I empathize with you in that. I would say, number one, start with the tools that I gave at the end there. So with grounding your energy and protecting your energy, and also meditation. So I do mine with meditation, but the more that you do meditation, I mean, those are just some exercises to do during meditation, but take it further. The more you can start to connect with your own energy and see the gift that you are, understand that you are not here alone, that's going to help you to feel more supported. That's first and foremost, okay? Then another thing that will be very empowering to you is to start to see what your role might be in that environment. What is there that you might be able to learn from the other people around you? So I want to make sure that no one is interpreting this as if there's something wrong with you and, well, you just need to learn from everyone around you. No. I say it to be in service to you as a strength. So you're there somehow for a reason. Somehow you got there. So first, let's support you in gaining all that you can out of this. The more information you can extract from what's going on around you, who other people are showing up as, and how this is impacting you, that's going to support you in being able to see beyond the current situation of feeling like you're in a toxic work environment. You may get some added insights, especially through your meditation, of how you can, of how this is more than just you versus them. I hope that makes sense. You may eventually come to the place of realizing, you know, yeah, this is, I mean, yes, you've learned, what's going on here, what can you learn about yourself and other people and how to work with energy. And then you may eventually still come to the conclusion of this is just flat out a toxic environment and not a place that's healthy for you to be in. So then start to take action on that. What would a work environment that would be in support of you, what would that look like? Start to connect with that. So this is something you could definitely expand on in working with a coach. And meditation is also a great thing you can do on your own. But I would then take it that next step. If this, don't continue to immerse yourself in an environment that is ultimately not healthy for you. But definitely don't just walk away because it doesn't feel good. See what you can learn from it first to really be in support of you, so that as you take that next step, you are actually moving forward and not necessarily just going to maybe find yourself in a similar situation again. So I hope that helps answer the question.
Great. Now we have a question from Houston. Donna says, I feel very threatened by my boss's energy. He seems to be very firm on his ways, and I would like to feel more secure of myself around him.
So I can certainly identify with that. I had that one before myself. So a lot of this comes back to the things that I was already saying. So it's by starting to understand that the more you embrace your energy, then other things are going to start to shift around you. So ultimately, no one can make us act or be a certain way. Only we can do that. So it's about, are we giving our power over to them, or are we going to embrace more of our own power first? So there is a wonderful quote, and I have it on a magnet, a wonderful quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. What does she say? She says, oh goodness, I'm blanking on the quote right now, but it's a quote, something about, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. That's what it is. It's something along those lines. So I share that with you to be in service of you. So to remind yourself that as unpleasant and as conflicting it may feel to have a boss that approaches you that way, keep in mind that you first and foremost have control over how much you embrace yourself first. So the more you can step into that, then the scales are going to start to shift. And you'll notice that person will respond to you differently as you go on. Another thing you can start to do is, again, so the different tips that I gave during the presentation, start to take, some slow, deep breaths as these situations are happening. As you start to connect with your own, clarity of mind and thought, then you'll be able to respond verbally in different ways than maybe you have been in the past. So when someone's super overbearing and coming at you, then the more clear-headed you can start to understand, wait a second, no, I don't need to bow down to them just because they maybe expect that of me. What is my truth in this moment? And start to see how you want to respond in different ways. So this is, again, something that if we were working one-on-one or to go deeper, then we could certainly look at the specifics of your situation. But I hope that gives you just, a foundation of something you could work with to be in support of you in a situation like that, because I know how frustrating that can be at times. So anyway, I hope that supports you in starting to answer that question.
Thank you. Let's move on. Jillian says, do you recommend any kind of meditation or practices to clear your mind?
So when you're first starting out, I'm going to go back to my own personal experience, but I know a lot of people identify with this. When you're first starting out with meditation, oh my goodness, that can feel like one of the hardest things in the world because there's so much going on up here. So I have found it really helpful to actually start out with guided meditations. So I do have a free one that I offer to my clients, and it's on my website. But find one that works for you. So there are lots of different guided meditations that you can find online, that you can purchase. Start to look into different ones that speak to you, that you feel drawn towards, and try different ones. With the guided meditation, it gives you something else to focus on, and you can start to feel like you're making some progress. If you just start out completely on your own, whether in silence or with music, those are awesome too. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying for someone who's starting and there's lots of stuff going on up here, then guided meditation can really help you feel like you're getting somewhere. Then over time, you may find that it's easier to start to do some that are just different brainwave frequencies or sounds. And then maybe even just in silence. There are all different ways of doing meditation. That is my recommendation if you're just starting out. And definitely be easy on yourself. When I first started, I didn't feel like it worked at all. In fact, I stopped. I stopped. And then eventually life felt like it was falling apart for me, and it became something to revisit. And so again, I started with guided meditation and just was more and more consistent with that, and then moved into, doing it with just music and silence and things like that. So I hope that helps you. Don't be hard on yourself. Just know that just keep practicing it. Let me add this. As you're doing meditation, and the common thing that people say is, "Oh, I'm going to stop my thoughts." Well, there's also the train of thought that you can't ever stop your thoughts. We have like 60,000 plus thoughts a day, and they just keep coming and coming, right? So as one comes in, okay, just say, "Well, thank you for showing up. I'm going to now allow you to pass on," and just send it on its way, and continue to practice to go back to a place of trying to find a calm or an ease. You may visualize an ocean or, clouds or sky. There's so many different techniques. It's all about you finding what works for you. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Let's continue. From Ohio, Danielle asks, what other exercises do you recommend to find out or deepen into knowing who we are?
Well, there are certainly all sorts of personality tests and things like that. One thing you can do, so I look at it as information gathering. So if you're really struggling with asking yourself and coming up with answers, then you could look at it as you're doing research. You're doing research and discovering who you are. So if you can allow yourself to look at it as maybe a fun experiment, then you can start to do some personality tests, make your own lists of who you think you are. No judgment about it. Just make some lists. You can ask people who you trust and feel are in support of you, and see what they share with you, because a lot of times other people see things in us that we just completely overlook, or maybe are too afraid to embrace and accept. And maybe you've been doing that so long, that's why you're just like glossing over it now. But someone else is like, "Oh my gosh, hello, you are amazing at," right? So ask people that you trust and are in support of you. And beyond that, I also recommend journaling. So start to allow, a stream of thought and consciousness start to come through as you're writing. Right now, again, no judgment about this. Be wherever you are is just fine. So, okay, right now I'm going to start journaling because I really want to know more about who I am. I want to start to learn to embrace that. And just like literally, you just start writing everything that comes to mind. And as you gain a rhythm, you'll start to know more, start to see more and more that comes through. And you'll start to be able to pare down all the research that you've done on yourself and find your true answer of who you feel you are.
Thank you, Kim. Your next question says, I believe I'm a very impatient person. This would be my main weakness. How can I change this into a strength?
How can you change impatience into a strength? Well, I would start to starting to look at how does being impatient, how is that in service to you? So maybe you are really good at getting things done really quickly. Maybe you are really good. I'm coming up with, things that I think might be relevant to you, but of course I don't know who you are. Maybe you are really good at being on time. Maybe you are very detailed. I'm somehow getting a sense that maybe you're very detailed. So start to see how that can be in service to you. And then start to see, okay, if you've identified that this is something you'd like to shift about yourself, I would encourage you to, I was going to say work with a coach. I don't believe everything has to be done with a coach, but when we are really hard on ourselves, it can be really hard to start to see how our weaknesses, how we can flip them. So that's why I want to go to that. But start off by seeing, how does this actually serve you? And then just start to pace yourself. So let's say you're impatient when it gets to waiting for something at the 5-minute mark. How can you start to look at, the gift of extra time? Let's say there's extra time that you're waiting for something. What can you do with that time? How can you maximize that time? Maybe you thought you weren't going to have that time, but oh my gosh, now you do. So maybe you start to carry a book with you everywhere you go and get some extra reading in. Or maybe you realize those are moments that you can connect with a family member or a friend that you haven't spoken to in a long time, and maybe send some extra text messages or emails out in that time. Those are just some little ideas. I hope that helps you. If anything, maybe jogs your mind and ideas of how you could start to shift that. But definitely look at how that also is in service to you in some way, and how that might connect you to other people who can also see the gift of that in you. I hope that answers your question.
Perfect. Next question. Lisa says, as a stay-home mom, I feel like I've lost my personality. What can I do to find a way to embracing who I am?
Oh, okay. So yes, that's a really good question. So her name was Lisa, is that correct?
Correct, Lisa.
Okay. Sorry about that. I just want to make sure I had the right name. So Lisa, so I encourage you to start to connect back to what were things that you knew about yourself back when you forgot, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So many years ago, I was married, and I had no idea that I was going to lose myself in my marriage and forget who I was. But nevertheless, it happened. So start to connect back with, okay, what are the things that I used to love to do? What are maybe some ideas that you used to have about your life? It doesn't mean you need to completely switch up your life. You need to, you're not just going to stop, having your kids or, those kinds of responsibilities. But how can you start to incorporate some of those things that you do recall about yourself that you liked from your past, and start to incorporate those into your present moment? Start to do some of those hobbies that you used to like to do. Start to gift yourself some more time. That whole airplane analogy, you have to give yourself a mask first before you can give it to anybody else, right? That's that whole self-care piece, taking time to give to yourself first so that you can give to others. So when you give to yourself first, taking time to journal, taking a few extra minutes to meditate, that's going to help you start to connect back to yourself and remember who you are. And you may find that you are a new person now, but you're bringing those pieces of yourself that you remember from the past with the awesome parts of who you are today, and going to be able to take both of those forward into the present consciously, mindfully. So I want you to know that it's possible, and you are not alone, because this happens with a lot of people. Another way to look at this, I just want to add this, is I think a lot of that tends to be when we get so in the habit of coming from a head space. And so starting to bridge that gap between head and heart, and understand that your emotions are more than just symptoms or a reaction to something. Your emotions are information. So the more that you can connect to that place and go, okay, what's this telling me? Anything that Okay, that's a whole other conversation, but I will leave it there. But I hope that supports you in moving forward with that, knowing who you are.
Great. Robin says, Kim, thank you for your talk. And my question is how to connect to ourselves and be fully present.
Okay, so the question is, how can you connect to yourself and be fully present?
Correct.
Okay, so repetition, the practice in doing the different tools and tips that I mentioned in there. So definitely the grounding. When you first start off with protection, something I want to add about protection. So we don't, first off, building walls around ourselves, that is not the same as protection. We're not talking about protection in the sense of keeping people out. We're talking about protection in the sense of being in support of you, in allowing energies that you do want to allow in and your energy out, but also being sort of this, this sort of a porous barrier in allowing you to bounce right off anything you don't want to take in. So that's how when I'm saying protection for your energy, that's where I'm coming from with that. But it's not to develop the mindset that you need to protect yourself and be safe from everybody. And this is not about promoting fear at all. This is about knowing that these are tools that can support you and standing more confidently in who you are. So by doing things like grounding, starting off with protection, especially if you feel like you really need that, and then lots of slow, deep breaths. I mean, all throughout the day. Okay. So when you're starting to feel like things are off, or you're just not feeling as supported or grounded, take that time, put your hand on your heart, hand on your abdomen, and take some deep breaths, slow, deep breaths. As you do that, you are connecting right back to who you are. I also encourage reading material that is in support of you in this. So, there are also, books about learning about your energy and I would say the law of attraction and your emotions. So there's all sorts of references, out there for you. But starting to do those things that are going to remind you to, help you to be more mindful and aware of your energy and what's going on throughout your day. So it's not just like something you do, once a week and then you forget about it and then everything impacts you. You need to kind of make it a regular practice so you can start to hone that skill, and then it becomes part of your regular rhythm. So I hope that helps.
Okay, the next question says, what do you think about the relation between thoughts and emotions?
So I love it. So emotions are information, and our thoughts, we may think that we don't choose our thoughts, but we actually have the ability to choose our thoughts, which means that we are choosing our thoughts. It's about what we are allowing and what we're not. So I think there's, I've heard this different ways, that your thoughts create your emotions, that your emotions create your thoughts. For me personally, it goes both ways. And it's all about understanding what your emotions are telling you. So let's say you think a thought and it doesn't feel good. Okay, well, the fact that doesn't feel good is telling you something's out of alignment. So then what's a better thought you can think? What would be another way to, whatever subject you're thinking about, what would be another way to think about that? And how can you shift that? That's the connection. So another thing you could do is start to say, okay, let's see. Well, I was going to say you could think, what am I feeling right now? And then start to look at, well, what's happening in your life, and see how that connects to your emotions. I don't know if that would make sense right there. But so I think they're absolutely connected, and you can always start to shift the emotion or the thought by being aware of, does this feel good or not? And then take the liberty to start to shift that. The more that you are noticing that you're feeling good, right? That's like just a very simple way. No emotions are bad, by the way. So in no way, shape, or form am I saying there's bad emotions and good emotions. No, all emotions are information. What's key for you to know is that the better you feel, that means the higher vibration you've got going on within you, and then you are going to be in more alignment the better you are feeling. So I hope that answers the question.
All right, let's move on. It says, the next question, I find myself judging a lot of my coworkers, family, and partner. Is this natural? How can I change these in a conscious way?
Is it natural to judge? Okay, so I love that question. So first off, know that you're not alone, right? This tends to happen to a lot of us. We tend to judge each other. Here's the thing. Whenever we're judging each other, that's an indication that we're also really harshly judging ourselves. So one way you can start to shift that is start to bring it within and start to look at what are you judging about yourself. Everyone outside of us is a mirrored reflection of us, which I know if we're not used to thinking about other people that way, especially the people that frustrate us the most, that can be really hard to digest. And yet there's so much insight and wisdom about who we are when we start to embrace that that's what's going on. So if you notice that there's something in someone else that you're judging, a particular thing about them, maybe take a deep breath, and then say, okay, in what way do I blah, 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 whatever the thing is that you're judging. This is not about blaming yourself. This is not about making you wrong for anything. This is in service to you to be able to find that space of ease. Ever notice how there's some people in your life who absolutely love you and see the best in you, and other people who just, they don't, they see the opposite? They're mirrored reflections of what's going on within you. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, it takes one to know one. That works in the positive sense and the not so positive sense. So a way that you can start to find more ease and release judgment of others is start to take it within and say, in what way am I judging myself? Start to do that. And then if you can start to look at the other person and have compassion for them and know that they too are also doing the best that they can at this point in time in their life, knowing that you have zero control over that as much as you may know about them, you still do not know everything about them. Just as everyone does not know everything about you and everything you are dealing with. If we can start to live in that space of the unknown, of the question of, okay, I'm not that other person, then it allows us to start to find some ease and have compassion for them. It doesn't mean you need to like them. It doesn't mean you need to become buddy-buddy with them, but it will be in support of you finding more ease and separating from how frustrating and the tension that you get from that judgment of them. Because as you see that on them, you're really just taking it in more yourself. And you deserve better than that too. So I hope that helps. Start to release the judgment from yourself and then have compassion for them. That will support you and starting to shift that.
Thank you, Kim. Before we continue with the questions from our audience, I would like to remind everybody that if you would like to help the world through Mindalia TV, there's a few things that you can do that would help a lot of people around the world. One of them is to subscribe to our channel, to give us a like on this video, or to leave a positive comment below. Please knowing that by doing so, you're helping Mindalia TV to reach even more people around the world who can benefit from conferences like this one today with Kim. Let's continue with the questions, Kim. We have many questions today.
Oh, wonderful.
Let's see. The next one says, I find myself going on and on with thoughts in my head. How can I stop this vicious cycle?
My goodness. So first off, I love your guys' questions. Such good questions. So very, very first step, and it sounds like you've already got this, but very first is the awareness of what those thoughts are. So I know years ago, I realized that I was the one who was bringing myself down with my own thoughts, but I didn't even know when I was doing it, how it was happening, like what's going on here. And it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny at all. So first and foremost is awareness of what's going on. Then start to I would say just set, so like baby steps. Okay. This is baby steps. Be easy on yourself. Just start to set the intention that I'm going to be more aware of what my thoughts are. And then start to catch yourself when you have certain negative thoughts that are not serving you. So again, just setting the intention that I'm going to be more aware of what my thoughts are, and be able to, catch when I'm thinking negative, low vibration thoughts that don't serve me. Again, be easy on yourself. When I first started to do this, I didn't even catch myself in the moment. I noticed it like 5-10 minutes later, sometimes maybe even longer. I was like, wait a second, that happened again. And I was like, but it didn't just happen. It happened like 10 minutes ago. Again, this was not funny at all at the time, but as I share it with you today, it is. So just set the intention, knowing that you want to start to shift these things, okay? So then, next step, as you start to become aware of like, oh, it just happened. I just told myself that I'm stupid. I just told myself that I'm horrible at whatever. I'm the worst, whatever. Ugh, even me just saying that to you right now in this moment does not feel good. So you can ask yourself, once you catch them as they're happening, start to shift it. Is that true? I'm the worst, whatever. No. What are you good at? How is you being in that role like such a gift to the people around you? So I take it to the place of affirmations. That can be a great way to start to shift these things. So you can start to look at what are the thoughts that you're having and flip them. There's all sorts of resources out there. You can find, books and CDs on different affirmations. You can come up with your own. The key is with affirmations, you want to find something that, well, here's ideally, you want to find an affirmation that feels true to you, so that as you start to repeat it, it's easier for you to start to embrace it and adopt it. But here's something else I want to add to this. If you find that you are in such a deep, dark place, a hole, but you have you just have such intense desire to get yourself out of that hole that maybe you've dug with the negative thinking, then just start to, for me, when I first started years and years ago, I started with a CD. And so there were all these different statements that, none of them felt true, but I just needed something to shift. So I started to repeat the affirmations that were on this CD for me. So it wasn't so much about these statements feeling true yet. It was my desire for them to be true that allowed me to shift into a place of starting to embrace them. And for me, at that time, it was about 2 weeks of, I think about twice a day, I was repeating a whole series of affirmations to myself. And 2 weeks into it, I started to notice, oh my gosh, I'm actually noticing the shift. I'm thinking a little different. I'm a little easier on myself. Things are feeling a little better. Now, don't think that it has to be 2 weeks for you. Your time frame is whatever your time frame is, okay? So, but the key is to start to be deliberate about telling yourself other better feeling thoughts. So again, lots of resources out there for that. But one thing you can do is, if you can identify what the negative thought is that you're saying to yourself and start to flip that, then start to make it a regular practice to start to instill the opposite or something that feels better, so you can start to shift. And an affirmation may only be useful to you to the extent of, when you finally embrace it. So once you've got that new thought ingrained in you, then that may not be the best affirmation to keep telling yourself. Maybe you want to take it the next step. Okay, so what's the next step then? What's a new affirmation now you want to start to bring into your awareness? So that is how I go about getting out of that negative cycle and the chaos up here. Start to be deliberate and shift it. You absolutely have the power. And again, no matter where you are, it may simply start with just becoming more aware. So if that's where you are, you have no idea what those thoughts even are or when you're even doing it, then just start by setting the intention that you're going to become open and aware, and then start to notice how things shift for you over time. So I hope that helps.
Great, let's continue. Next question. As an empath, it's hard for me not to feel depressed or question why many things happen around me. What do you recommend to me?
So I recommend, again, a lot of the tips that I mentioned in today's presentation. If you're finding yourself in that space of depression, so I'm a coach, but I'm not a therapist, and coaching isn't quite therapy, but I will say that some people have actually said coaching can be better than therapy. Okay, with that said, there is zero shame in going to a therapist. Years ago, before I really even knew coaching existed myself, there were a handful of times I had gone to a therapist myself. So if you notice you're really struggling with something that's really deep, and for you that's showing up as depression, then ask for help. Absolutely ask for help. Reach out, and it may take you a time or two to find a therapist that really fits you. Maybe you'll get lucky and find your ideal therapist in the first try. Maybe you won't, and so if you can, be patient with that process, and then finally find one that works for you. And so I definitely encourage that. Let's say you're not quite in that place though, and maybe you kind of go in and out of this back and forth place. I think that's where, taking the self-care really comes into play, and being aware of where are you giving your attention to. So where are you giving your attention to? That can be other people. It can be, in my scenario earlier, it was my work, right? It might be things like watching the news, or maybe certain movies. What are you giving attention to? What are you bringing in that is not in support of you? So you may find that you actually need to cut some things out to really help yourself feel like you can get a jump start. You can really start to strengthen that foundation and not feel like you're constantly being knocked off, even though you're trying to do this or that. Maybe you need to, go bold and take it another step further. So there was a long time I stopped watching the news. I had to, and I know a lot of people have had to do that. So if you are that full-blown empath, and if you're still, surrounding yourself by a lot of the negative situations that are happening in the world, or maybe you've got a lot of people in your life, might even be friends, right? But are those friends really friends? Maybe it's family even. Oh, I know how frustrating that can be. What do you need to do to really be in support of you getting, being able to take in more positive energy and start to, flip the switch, or what am I saying? And, tip the scales. That's what I'm trying to say. Tip the scales, so you can start to gain momentum in bringing in more positive energies. Again, this is not a catch-all for everybody. So for anyone out there who's thinking, what, I have depression and that's not my answer, then it's not your answer. So in this moment, as I don't know who just asked that, right? This is what's coming up for me and what I want to share with you. But I absolutely encourage you to continue to, to find, if this did not answer your question, or for other people who may have the same question, continue to be open to what will work for you, and know that there is nothing weak about asking for help. I hope you know that. So if you need to ask for help, get a therapist or a coach for a time being, then by all means do that. And that's with the understanding that that's going to help you get to that next place. It's not like a death sentence. I got a therapist and now that's it. No, it's in support of you being able to get to that next place. And that's how we can be in service to each other. So anyway, okay, I'll end that answer there, but I hope that was helpful to you.
Thank you, Kim. Your next question says, I struggle with anxiety every day. How do you recommend to overcome these and the fears that people like me experience?
So again, I'm not a therapist, But here are my thoughts about that. Of course, there are differing levels of anxiety as well. So for those listening who have this similar experience, take this with a grain of salt. I like to say, take what you need, leave what you don't, because this answer will certainly serve some and maybe not others, and that's okay. So for anxiety, okay, first and foremost, definitely a lot of that deep breathing, right? Definitely a lot of the deep breathing. What else do I want to say? There was something else that came up that I wanted to share. Oh goodness, I'm drawing a blank. Can you repeat the question again, Paola?
Of course. It says, I struggle with anxiety every day. How do you recommend to overcome these and the fears that people like me experience?
Okay. So fear, I'm sure you've heard this, false evidence appearing real. I'm going to go with it from the fear side of things first. Okay. So false evidence appearing real. Now, there may very well be something to be afraid of, but we also know many times we can kind of start to exaggerate things in our head, right? Something that hasn't even happened, we're just overly worrying about it. That overly worry can actually then become a form of self-sabotage and a self-fulfilling prophecy to create a situation to, oh my goodness, right? We don't want that. So the more we can start to see that we might be doing that, that's something that had, like, look at what's fact, what's already occurred, and what is simply, a fear and energy around that. So a lot of times we think, what if this thing that I don't want to have happen happens? Okay, what if the thing that you want to have happen happens? Or what if something greater than that could actually happen? So with our thoughts, just as our emotions, we have the ability to redirect energies. So I think a lot of times we think that what already is, so maybe for some people it might already be, well, this chaos that already is, then, well, that's just is, right? Like that's not going anywhere. That's just it. I've tried. It's not going anywhere. It's like turning a ship that's, or turning a sailboat, let's say. So a sailboat that's caught wind and it's moving with the current, right? And now all of a sudden you're trying to shift gears and you're on that sailboat trying to turn that wheel. That's so hard. You have to slow down to speed up. It's going to take some time to switch gears first. And then as you start to, sailboat metaphor here, as you start to turn that boat around, you notice you start to find some ease as you start to pick up more momentum in the other direction. So going back to our fears and the thoughts that may be continuing to contribute to those fears and anxieties, know that you have the ability and the power to shift that in a different direction. And it really is. I know that this can sound simplified. And this is the thing. Isn't it interesting how simple these kinds of things can be, and yet so hard. It feels hard. The hardness is just because you're like that sailboat, already having that momentum going in the current direction. But by your ability to say, you know what, I want to go in a different direction. I'm going to be open to tips and tools that will help me steer this in a different direction. Know that it's not going to happen overnight. Just accept that. It's not going to happen overnight. Okay. Okay. But the fact that you say yes to starting to shift that, wow, there you go. It starts with saying yes. So start to shift it, be more deliberate, and practice thinking the other thoughts. So what if this thing that's not pleasant, ooh, that doesn't feel good when I think about that. So the fact that it doesn't feel good is telling me that I'm out of alignment, not in alignment with the truth of who I am. So then what actually would feel better? Oh, this other statement that actually, well, gosh, I haven't seen that happen yet, but gosh, that would be nice. If this positive thing actually could happen, that does feel better, even if just slightly, even if just subtly it feels better, that is your clue that you're moving in the right direction, in the direction that you're wanting to go, to start to find more peace and less chaos in that place. So start to allow yourself to move into that space. Just because something hasn't happened yet does not mean that it is not possible. It simply means that, oh, you've been in a different direction up until then. That's all it is. That's all it is. So I could probably continue to go on and on, but I really think that I would need to know more about the person's specific situation. But I hope this has been helpful to you, because for me, there's that total link about the anxiety and fear and how we are so, here's the thing, you are so powerful. You're so powerful that you absolutely have the ability to go in any direction with your thoughts that you want. And it's just a matter of what has been practiced over and over and over time, that's where you currently are. And I know we can argue this until the cows come home or whatever, pigs fly. We can argue this until forever, but here's what I've found a lot. A lot of us, we start out living by default, meaning we don't realize our own power to be able to shift things. We don't realize it. We don't even know it. And that could simply be because the people you grew up with, the people who taught you, they didn't know it. They didn't know it either. So it's not about blaming anybody, but you have this awareness now, which means, oh my gosh, like, what can I do with this? You know what? Infinite possibilities. Infinite possibilities. So, okay, I feel like I'm going on and on, but I just encourage you, please know that if you are in a state of, I'm tired of this anxiety, I'm tired of this fear, of the worry, of the chaos, the depression, whatever it is, know that you can make progress by starting to allow yourself to be open to shifting in a different direction. If you need to ask for help, okay? It's not always so easy to do it on your own. However, you also can. So I hope this has been helpful for you and anybody else who may have had that same question.
Thank you, Kim. We have reached our last question for today. And it says, how can we be more attentive, or how can we be attentive enough to the messages that come to us from the universe?
Oh, I love that. Okay. So, how can, I really love that question. Okay. How can we be more attentive to the messages that come to us from the universe? By being present and aware to your emotions. So, when we've got a lot of, there's so much I want to give in this answer, and I'm trying to find a way to be brief. So being present to your emotions. So what that might mean first is, if that's something you're not used to and you're like, what does that mean? Or how do I do that? It might mean first that maybe you have some old stuff in your life, maybe some situations in your life that happened that maybe you haven't fully processed, or maybe they're still underneath the surface of why you get angry in certain situations, or conversations with people, or maybe you have certain triggers that you see something maybe on TV and it brings you right back to a situation in your life, and all of a sudden you're super sad again. First off, I'm not saying that that's wrong. However, if you notice that that's because the more you start to become present and aware of your emotions, you'll start to discern between, okay, there's something still there that I haven't fully worked through. So I think for a lot of us, when we're just starting out, it's about clearing out the old stuff, releasing the old hurt. There might be a degree of forgiveness that's required or involved. And it might be forgiveness of other people, or it might just be forgiveness of yourself. So once we start to clear out energy that's kind of getting in the way of us bringing in more positive energies and really being open to other stuff, that's going to start, you're going to start to notice more ease with seeing signs and how the angels are speaking to you, or how your spirit guide, whatever terms you use, the universe, how the messages that they're bringing to you. That's not to say that you won't see those at all, if, say, you've still got stuff to release or process. But I've found that it makes it easier when you don't have all this other stuff going on within you, and you can start to be more of a clear channel. Then that makes it easier to be open and aware to things. But again, intention, having an intention, setting an intention. Okay, universe, please help me start to see your signs, start to understand your signs. Years ago, when my dad died, I started noticing there were pennies everywhere I went, pennies, 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 pennies. And finally, I got the clue. Oh, because I realized the thought that I had at the same time. So this may be something you want to do too. Maybe you're starting to notice certain signs, but you're questioning, second guessing, doubting. What other thought do you have when you notice that sign? Because that's going to start to be the clue for you, what the connection is. What is that? What does that sign mean for you? Oh, when I saw the pennies, I all of a sudden realized, oh, that's a hello from my dad. So I hope that is helpful. Gosh, there's so much we could do with that. But seriously, just set the intention, start to notice the synchronicities that come to you. And the universe is constantly speaking to all of us in so many different ways. A lot of the common ways are, feathers, pennies, numbers, 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 numbers. If you see number sequences over and over and over, 444, 111, 222. You could go on and on. And it doesn't have to be that. It could even be like 417. Maybe you see 417 everywhere you go. That there are messages within those. So that's certainly stuff you can research more on your own. But I hope that helps. Great question to end on. So thank you for asking it.
Thank you very much, Kim. We appreciate the information that you have shared live today with many people from many places around the world. And to all the people who have watched us today on Mindalia TV Live, thanks for your important participation. Before we finish, we would like to give a minute to our guest to say goodbye and to give us her contact information so our Mindalia TV audience can reach to her.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mindalia TV and Paola and Angel Rebo. I know he does an amazing job with the Mindalia TV interviews. And to all those who've been here present today, I'm just so grateful for you. And I hope you just know that wherever you are right now, it's okay. Like this moment serves a purpose. And where you are today is not necessarily where you will be tomorrow, okay? So if you would like to get in contact with me, you can certainly go to my website, KimO'NeillCoaching.com, and O'Neill is ONEILL. You can also find me on Facebook at KimO'Neill Coaching or on Twitter at Kim's on a Mission. And my email address is also KimO'Neill@outlook.com. And I certainly welcome, any other thoughts or questions. I do offer free coaching consultations, and we can certainly, explore how I may be able to support you and wherever you are today. So that's how you can connect with me. And I'm so grateful to have been here today. So thank you.
Thanks again, Kim. And thank you to our audience. And remember that if you want to collaborate with Mindalia, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mindalia TV, or you can like this video or leave a positive comment below. Know, please, that by with these small gestures, you help Mindalia reach even more people around the world. We'll see you next time on Mindalia TV Live, and thank you very much for joining us. Thank you again, Kim.
Thank you.